I think we see in the research between men and women that each gender goes about cross-gender friendships a little differently. Like men are more likely to want to be friends with women if they're sexually attracted to them, and women are less likely to voice that as a reason. We also see in the research that interestingly, women report that their closest friendships are with women, but men report something mixed, where sometimes they say their closest friendships are with men, sometimes they say they're with women. And we also see that, when men are friends with men, they're almost half as likely to be vulnerable than women who are friends with women. And they're almost like half as likely to share like affirmation than women are. And so what I think might be happening is that when men become friends with women, there's this mixing of norms because men and women have pretty different, and of course we're speaking in generalizations here with many exceptions, but many different norms when it comes to friendship. Like I said before, I think for women, there's a lot of overlap between how you treat a romantic partner and how you treat a friend. Like I can tell you how deeply I love you. I can, have physicality, hug you, hold hands. Some people cuddle with each other. I can be very vulnerable with you. But often for men, it's like there's this different box for how I treat my friends and how I treat my romantic partner. And I think part of that is there's this concept in the research called homohysteria, which is the fear of being perceived as gay. And, if we look into the history, homohysteria wasn't always haunting men in the ways that it was now, because before 1867, basically it was taboo to have sex with someone of the same sex, but that was the only thing that was taboo. And after 1867, Freud and Richard von Krafft-Ebing, two psychiatrists, they are trying to like stigmatize people that have sex with someone of the same sex more. So they argue, well, if you're having sex with someone of the same sex, you have this whole identity. And now there's a constellation of behaviors that could suggest your identity. It's not just sex, it's intimacy with the same gender at all might suggest that you have this disordered identity. And so from then on, we saw like just a real breaking apart of men's friendships that is so sad and so tragic, because this is like a fundamental human need to have this form of intimacy.
That is really interesting. And I think of the history of psychotherapy and psychiatry, and often how just cultural norms, not even cultural norms, sorry, moral standards usually found through religion are then snuck into the research in order to say, that this is what the research says. This is what, it's kind of like having just had a baby. I remember learning that when women had postpartum depression, they were often put into mental health, like taken and put in a, what would it be, like a mental health hospital? And even the origin of the word hysteria, like these types of things I just am so fascinated by. And to take something like friendship that might lead into, or homosexual behavior, is that the right term? Behavior where men are hooking up. Yeah, homohysteria, is that right? Or homosteria?
Homohysteria.
Okay, I got it. That fear of being perceived as that, I can see that. I also wonder though, like, and it's interesting to me that then it was built into this psychological framework that you have a disorder if you're doing that. And then of course men withdraw from it, which is true of any behavior that gets, coded in that way. I'm curious though, because I also see the shift in culture that we don't go hunting anymore generally. We still do, but like not near the same amount. We don't go on the same sort of adventures to go get the thing and then come back, where you would experience potentially needing to cuddle because it's freezing in your, tent or whatever you're in. But you also don't get that camaraderie and that connection. Like, two dudes don't often go to the grocery store together, although great idea. But you know what I mean? Like there's less of those contained spaces. And I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about, is there a difference between, and I'm curious if is there a difference between male group behavior opportunity and female group behavior opportunity in today's culture?
This is a great question, because I feel like aside from culture, like I'm kind of confused on why the friendship worlds are so different from men and women. And we also see men experiencing higher rates of like institutional disengagement, like they're less likely to join institutions that can foster connection or be involved in a kid's school.
Do you mean
or
like
join
academic?
social groups? No, just general, like joining social groups, joining social clubs generally. To be honest, I'm not really sure why. I talked to Everyman, and they're like a group that they have like spaces for men to connect with each other. And we were trying to like really figure it out, like what is actually what's going on, or like why is this withdrawal more of a norm for men? And one thing that he said was interesting was like, well, part of traditional masculinity is that if you're in a state of pain, you just adapt to it. Like you don't complain about it, you don't admit it, right? And loneliness is a state of pain that can feel like admitting weakness, and acknowledging it and doing something about it requires you to admit it in the first place.